Hey, alright, welcome to another video. If you haven't here before, my name is Georgia Jo and this is my channel where I talk all things books. So today I thought I would go through my list of books I want to read this year, so 25 in 2025. Some of these I do already own because one of my main goals this year is to clear down my physical TBR, and then some of them I don't own but I'd still like to read. All of them are already out. None of these are like new releases for this year. They're just books that I want to get read, you know. So yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so these aren't really in like any order, so I'll just go from the top. I made a shelf on Goodreads, so I'll just go from the top of what is on there. So first off we have Psycho Shifters, which is the first book in the Cruel Shifterverse by Jasmine Mass. So this is the author who wrote The Blood of Hercules, which is one of my favourite books I read last year, so I wanted to get the rest of her books read, you know. So this is I think this might be the only other series out, potentially. I don't even know if they're all out. Oh, there's actually quite a few. Oh yeah, they were all published in April 2024. So yeah, there's 6 books in total, so I maybe finish the series but definitely start it because I want to read Jasmine Mass's backlog. I'm wondering if it is just Blood of Hercules that I really enjoyed, or if she's going to be one of my new favourite authors. So yeah, that is Psycho Shifters. I'm not going to go, I'm going to go through these books and not really explain them in too much detail, you know, because we've got 25 to get through and I don't necessarily know a lot about a lot of these books. They're just ones that I've seen people talk about or I want to get into and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just going to be a bit more rapid fire rather than actually explaining them all. So anyway, next one is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So this is the first book in the Part of Your World trilogy series. I know a lot of people have read this and I don't think I've ever read an Abby Jimenez book, so I want to get into it. I'm assuming it's just like gonna be like a romance, but yeah, I don't think I've read any of her books before, and I know a lot of the people who read like romance, like people who read like Emily Henry and maybe The Boys of Tommen and that type of thing, have read her books, so I'd like to get into it. So yeah, that is Part of Your World. And then the same thing with Under Lock by Mariana Zapata. I know a lot of people have read this author's books as well, and I don't think I've ever read one. I know there's like quite a few. I think if I remember rightly, this was the first one that was like published, so that's why I chose it on my list. But hopefully I can get into her backlog again and get them all read. I know there's quite a lot, so that probably won't all be done this year, but I'd like to at least start, you know. So yeah, that was Under Lock. And then again, the same thing with Kennedy Ryan. So I put Before I Let Go, which is the first one in the Skyland series. I don't think, again, I've read any Kennedy Ryan books and I'd really like to get into them. I know a lot of people have read them and really enjoy them. Also, they're really beautiful books, so more than happy to have them on my shelves, you know. If I have to, I'll have them on my shelves. I'll buy the physical version. But yeah, so that was Before I Let Go. I think again it's a romance, but I'm not really sure. I don't really know much about it. I feel a little bit left out, you know, that I've not read any of her books before, so looking forward to getting into it. And then next we have one that only very recently got added to the list because of Larry Reed's. Well, firstly, really Larry Reed's mum who recommended it to Larry Reed's. But yeah, it is Insatiable, which is the Edge of Darkness series by Lee Rivers. I think there's only 3 in this, and I want to say they're on Kindle Unlimited, but don't hold me to that, I'm not 100% sure. But this is like a dark romance, and I've been really into my dark romance again this year. It's actually a genre that I started off reading again on my Kindle. Well, at the time I didn't have a Kindle, I was reading it on the Kindle app on my phone, and I read nearly 200 books that year, and probably 90% of them were like dark romance books. So I was just really, I don't know what it was, I think because I'd never read it before, maybe, I'm not sure, but I've just really loved it. And then I haven't really read much dark romance in the past like 2 years, and I feel like I'm getting back into it. Like I reread some of the books that I read back then. I'm currently reading the Brutal Prince series, which I actually think the Brutal Prince series is on this list, but I have started reading that. And yeah, I'm very much getting back into it, so I'd like to get this series read as well. But this I think is a very dark romance. which I'm looking forward to. I think the only thing I don't like, Haunted and Haunted Landline, I didn't really enjoy. I don't really enjoy reading the like non-con, dub-con type books. They're just not for me. So I don't know if that is a part of this series. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll enjoy it. I don't know. But I definitely want to at least start the series. And then the same thing with Beautiful Fiend by Lola King. This is part of the North Shore series, and this again was something that I saw on Larry Reed's videos, because she very much reads a lot of dark romance, and I don't necessarily know if we have the same taste, because I think she really enjoyed The Haunted and Haunted Adeline. Although I did see her say recently on one of her videos that she didn't enjoy it at first, and then she reread it maybe and enjoyed it. And I've only read it once, so maybe I'd reread it, maybe I'd enjoy it, but I don't know. But I don't really have like a feeling that I want to reread it, so we'll see. I don't know if I'll enjoy these, but I would like to get them read this year. And then next up we have Face Off by Chelsea Curto. This is part of the DC Stars series. I think this is an ice hockey romance by the picture, and I feel like a few months ago a lot of people were talking about it and were reading it, and I do love a little like hockey, ice hockey, sports romance, you know. I don't read them very often, or if I do, they're typically on my Kindle, and I don't think I actually have any sports romance. Oh well, I have the Boys of Tommen series. Other than that, I don't think I own a lot of sports romance in physical form. But yeah, really looking forward to reading this. Like I said, look, maybe a little bit of a palette cleanser in between like fantasy series, or even in between dark romances, because I don't think it is a dark romance. And yeah, looking forward to reading it. Nice little ice hockey sports romance book. Next up we have Wings So Wicked, which is the first one in the Golden City series. This is by Emily Blackwood. I want to say this was Emmy, I think she's called, on BookTube, who read this. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that's where I got it from, but I can't fully remember. And I want to say she really enjoyed it, and it made me want to read it. I think it's that one anyway. But yeah, it's on my list. It's on my list. I want to get it read. I don't know, with all of these, I don't know if I'll get the whole series read or if I'll just start them off. I'm not sure, but yeah, that is that one. Next up we have Jade City, which is the first one in the Green Bone Saga series. I think it's a trilogy by Fonda Lee. I've seen loads of people talk about this. I'm pretty sure it's a fantasy. I don't think it's a romantasy. I think it's just fantasy, and that's something I'd really like to get into this year. And I think a lot of like fantasy heads really enjoyed the series, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. I do think I've seen the physical like books when people have had them on BookTube or BookTok or whatever, and I'm pretty sure they're quite chunky books, so I can't say I'll get all 3 read, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll really enjoy it and not want to put it down for a whole week and get the whole series read, who knows. But yeah, that is Jade City. And then next up we have the Addicted series, the first one being Addicted to You by Krista Ritchie. So I've not read any of the series, obviously this is the first one in it, but I feel like it's gonna give me the sort of same energy as Magnolia Parks. Not necessarily that it's the same story, but where you are very connected to the characters. Like the characters are the plot, you know, the characters' lives are the plot, if that makes sense. I think it's going to be very much like that, like a little bit of a reality TV show in a book. I think that's what it's going to give me. So I feel like we've not heard anything about the next Daisy Hates book coming out, and I have a little bit of a void, you know, since reading that. And I have actually reread, I think I reread the first 3, or maybe even, actually I think the first 4. I think I've just not reread Into the Dark at the end of last year, and I just feel like I want something to fill that gap. So yeah, I'm hoping that's what this is going to do. I'm pretty sure this whole series is on Kindle Unlimited, which is also always a win. So yeah, that is the Addicted series. Also, again, I don't think I'll probably get the whole series read, because I think this is like a 10-book interconnected series. So yeah, I'm not sure I'll get them all read, but I definitely want to start it. Next up we have got Red Rising, which is the first one in the Red Rising Saga series. This is by Pierce Brown. I think this is a trilogy, but there's also more books coming out, but it's like the the first 3 are like a enclosed trilogy, and then there's other books, I think. This is also a sci-fi, and I think it's going to be quite a difficult sci-fi to read. I've heard people say it's quite difficult to read, but that's something that I want to like do this year. I want to read more books a little bit out of my comfort zone, more books that you have to proper concentrate to read, you know, and sort of takes a minute to get your head around. I think it's going to be a little bit like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. I do actually have it on my Kindle. I think I bought it for one of the 99p deals 1 month, but I've had it on there for a few months now. So yeah, I'd like to get that read. Next up we have When the Moon Hatched, which is the first one in the Moonfall series by Sarah A. Parker. So this one, I'm pretty sure the second one in the series is coming out very, very soon, and this is like a fantasy book with dragons involved, I think. I'm assuming it's all with When the Moon Hatched. Like, the word hatched sounds like, you know, something coming out of an egg, i.e. a dragon. So yeah, I know this did like its rounds a few months ago on TikTok, and people were really enjoying it when it first came out, but I just never like read it. I never got into it. I don't have the physical book, I don't think. No, I don't have the physical book, but I'm pretty sure again it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I would really like to read this one. Then next we have Long Live Evil, which is the first one in the Time of Iron series, and it is by Sarah Reese Brennan. So this one I think is a little bit of a horror, I think. Oh, I can actually strike that. I think I might have made that up. I think the person goes into like a different world and she is the villain. I think that's what it is. That's what caught my attention. Again, I've got this one on my Kindle, which I bought in like the 99p deals, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. When I read the synopsis, I was like, that sounds really interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I don't know what type of genre it is. I said horror really confidently and then thought, actually, I don't think it is. I'm not 100% sure, but it does sound really interesting, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Next, we've got The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. I don't think I've read a Carissa Broadbent book before, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I've definitely not read this series. I've seen it loads on like Kindle Unlimited. I've been seeing it on my recommended on Kindle Unlimited for the past like 3 years, I feel. But because it's vampires, I've never gone to pick it up because I don't typically enjoy books about vampires. But I also think I've just made that up in my head. I don't typically enjoy them. I think I might have read one maybe that's about vampires and just not read anymore, you know? So I'd like to get into it. I know it's a really, really popular series, and I think it's now a completed trilogy and there's like spin-offs. I'm not 100% sure again, but I know a lot of people have read it and really enjoyed it, so I am looking forward to getting into it. Again, I think it's quite a chunky book, but it is on Kindle Unlimited, so yeah. Hopefully I will get around to it. Next up is Bear Town by Frederick Bachman. So this is, I actually own Winners by this author, and I didn't realise when I got that because I saw it in a charity shop, so I picked it up and I didn't realise it's actually part of a series, and I think it's like the 3rd one in the series. So I'd like to read Bear Town, and I want to say it's Us Against You or something like that. Is the second one? Yeah, it is. Us Against You is the second one, and then The Winners is the 3rd one. So yeah, I'd like to read the series. I know Sarah Caroli recently just read it and she really, really enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure she gave it like 5 stars, you know. So, and I think it's quite emotional, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I know Frederick Bachman is a really popular author anyway, but I've not read any of his books before, so yeah, looking forward to reading that one. Next up, this is a little bit of an ambitious one, and I don't know if I'll get round to it. This has been a goal of mine for the past few years since I've started reading again, to get this series read, but I'm only putting the first one on my list, and it is Game of Thrones. I would really like to get it read. I read this year, my goals were to read all the Harry Potters, which I read before, but I wanted to reread them all. The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and I did get those read. I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit, and I read all the Harry Potters, but I didn't get round to the Game of Thrones series, and I just really like to get it read. I feel like it's one of those like goals that I want to do at some point, get them all read. I can have them all on my bookshelf and say, yeah, I've read them, you know, that type of thing. But I've only put the first one on here. It might also be one of those series that I listen to. I think doing immersive reading with those is going to be a lot more enjoyable of an experience for me, so I might listen to it whilst I'm reading it. I don't own any of the Game of Thrones books. Actually, that's a lie. I think I might own the first one in paperback somewhere. But yeah, I would really like to get them all read at some point, but I'm only putting the first one on this list. Next up, we have The Book of Asriel, which is the first one in the Gods of Monsters series by Amber V. Nicole. I have heard a lot of people talk about this. Again, I think it's on Kindle Unlimited, so it might just be a good one to read when I'm looking for something on my Kindle. I think it's a fantasy like dark romance slash fantasy, that kind of thing. I don't really know much about it other than that, but I do know people have really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And the same again with the next one, Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is the first one in the Wicked Games series, and I think this one, whenever I've heard people talk about this and like describe it, I thought that sounds so good, let me read it right now, and then I get distracted with other books. So it's definitely on my list that I want to get it read this year, 100%. I think it really sounds like something I'm going to enjoy, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. Okay, we've only got a few more, and I'm pretty sure these few now I have got all on my physical TBR, so I definitely, these are like priority over the rest, I would say, probably, because I really want to get my physical TBR down. So the first one is Priest by Sierra Simone. So there's 3 books in this. I don't know if they are interconnected standalones, if they're all the same characters. I'm not sure, to be honest, but there's Priest, Sinner and Saint. I think again these are dark romance. I'm pretty sure the first one, he is a priest, hence the name, where I'm assuming he's like doing all the things that a priest does, like is not in a relationship or not having sex, whatever it is that priests have to do, and then someone comes along and changes that. I think it's that, but I'm looking forward to reading it. I know that this one has been out for quite a while, and I don't know why I've just never read it, but I haven't, but I definitely want to get it read. And then next up we've got the Brutal Prince series. This is one I'd like to complete the whole series. I'm actually currently on the 3rd book, I think, so I'm really enjoying this series so far. They're just very easy to read romances. I don't know, I guess they would come under dark romances because people are like dying and stuff and they're about the mafia, but I think they're very tame dark romances, you know, especially like the sex scenes and stuff. There's nothing too crazy in them. Like I've seen a lot worse stuff in dark romances that I've read. So yeah, I think they're like an easy one in. If you're wanting to get into dark romance, I'd recommend these because they're not too like graphic. There's not too much going on. It's not too much of a shock to the system if you've never read dark romance before. But yeah, I'm really enjoying them. I'm loving the characters. They're all interconnected standalones, but I would definitely recommend starting from the first one just because things are mentioned in the next ones. I think if you read it, you wouldn't necessarily feel like you were missing out, but once you've read the first one, you feel like you're included maybe a bit more because you understand what the characters are, who the characters are. So yeah, I'm currently on the 3rd one, so I'll definitely have this finished. Also, these are all on Kindle Unlimited as well, so yeah, looking forward to carrying on with that series. Then we have got Light Lark by Alec Astor. I think this is a trilogy, and I want to say they're all out now. I think, is this the one where it's Nightsbane and Sky Shade or something like that? I think it's that series, but this is like a trials one, I think, and typically I really enjoy those kind of books where they have to go through like trials and games and stuff like that. I think it's like that, so I'm looking forward to reading that one. I really am. It's been on my TBR for a couple of months now. And then next we have a trilogy which I really want to get into, and this is part of a wider like series. I think it's called Cosmere, I want to say, and this is again one that I would love to have all of the books on my shelf and be like, I've read all them, I've read all of them, I know every Brandon Sanderson book, I've read them all, you know. I definitely won't be reading them all this year because I think I think the Cosmere is, I want to say maybe like 10 to 15 books, but I think Brandon Sanderson in general has got an awful lot of books out, and I won't be getting them all read in the year unless they were the only books I read, you know. So anyway, this is the Mistborn trilogy. It's the first one. It's what people recommend you to start with if you've not read Brandon Sanderson books before, which I haven't. And I also think it's the first trilogy in the Cosmere, which people typically start with. So I do own all three. I got them like a couple of Christmases ago, and I've just never read them, but I'm really excited to get into it. These are fantasy books, and I don't think there's romance involved. I think they're pure fantasy, but I'm really looking forward to getting into that series and that world. Next up, we've got another book which did its rounds on TikTok and BookTube and stuff like that. I think it was one girl actually that made this super popular from her reactions. I can't for the life of me remember her name, and I actually really enjoy her TikToks, but I can't remember her name. And it was her reaction that made other people want to read this. And it is One Dark Window, which is the first one in the Shepherd King. I think this is a duology, and it is by Rachel Gillig. I'm pretty sure she has got another book coming out this year called Moth Behind the Window or something like that. Oh, it won't be a window probably. Something about a moth book coming out. But yeah, I'd really like to read this. Like I say, I think it's only a duology, and it's a fantasy one, I'm pretty sure. I don't really know much about it, but I definitely would like to get it read because I feel a bit left out. I know a lot of people have read it and really enjoyed it, so I want to know what the hype's about, you know. And then the penultimate series, or the last series I guess, but the penultimate book that I've got is A Darker Shade of Magic, which is the first one in the Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I don't think I've read a V.E. Schwab book, but I own this series, and I've also got, is it called Vicious? I think that's the same author, and I really want to get into it. I know a lot of people love this series and love this author, so I'd really like to get into their writing. And yeah, I know people, like I say, love this series. I do own the series. I've got all three books, so potentially I'd like to get all three read. Maybe I'll just read them one after another, but yeah, I really want to get that series read for sure, but definitely at least the first one. And then last but not least, we've got a book which I think has been on so many of my monthly TBRs. It was probably on my books I want to read last year, probably on my like end of year TBR that I did, or I think it's been on so many and I've still not read it, and it is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So this is the first one in Alex Stern series, that's what Goodreads says. I think the second one is called Hellbent, and then maybe there was a third one, I'm not 100% sure. But I did read Leigh Bardugo. I started reading Leigh Bardugo's books last year, so I read the Shadowbone trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, and I enjoyed them. They weren't like my favourite books, but I enjoyed them. I've also got the two King of Scars books to read as well, which I'd like to get read. And then I think I'm pretty much up to date with, oh no, there's a few more books of hers that I've read. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed the Shadowbone and the Six of Crows duology. I enjoyed them both series. I wouldn't like rave about them, they weren't my favourite, but I enjoyed them, you know, and I like her writing, so I'm looking forward to getting into something else that's not in the like Grishaverse. I don't think it is anyway in the Grishaverse. I think it's a complete like different series, different world. I think it's a Dark Academia book if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, anyway, that is the last one on my list, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. And that is all of the 25 books. I say 25, but a lot of them are actually series. But if you only include the first one in the series, then it's 25, I think, books that I'd like to read in 2025. I currently have a TBR of like 120-ish books, which I would like to really whittle down, so that is my priority. But also I think a lot of those are on Kindle, and I typically read like Kindle books that I don't have the physical book of, so, and I read that at like night, and that's how I tend to get through them. So yeah, I think I'll probably still get through a lot of them. Hopefully I'll read all of them this year. They're all on my TBR, but who knows what the year is going to bring, you know. But anyway, let me stop waffling on. That is the end of today's video. I hope you did enjoy. If you did and you'd like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. But other than that, I will see you in a bit.